What's going on, you guys? And welcome to this installment of The Script. I'm your host, Isaac Paul, and we're going to have a pretty good time today. So, for those of you all that don't know, I am the creator and the host of a show called The Tequila Tales. Now, what is The Tequila Tales? The Tequila Tales is a fully engaging and highly interactive discussion on love and relationships. What it is not is a panel discussion. I always make certain that people understand that it's not a panel discussion, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with panel discussions. But the thing about panels is that, what you end up having is a bunch of experts, and what they're going to do is they're going to tell you how you should feel or how they feel about certain things. But with the Tequila Tales, our motto is, with love, we all have a story to tell. And so our goal is to get those authentic stories out of individuals. And what you are watching today is the script, which in many ways is an extension of the Tequila Tales, right? And in what way? Well, because like I said a moment ago, our motto is, with love, we all have a story to tell, but oftentimes that story comes without a script. And so that's what this is. This is the script. And so from show to show, we're going to, do a couple of creative things. But with this particular show, because of the fact that, we have a monthly live show, what I like to do is the next script thereafter, I think it'll be kind of cool sometimes to go through some of the comments, as it relates to the topic that we discussed. So this past month, what we were discussing, our particular topic was, okay, so first and foremost, one of the things that I try to do is I want to get people outside of that space of who should pay for the first date, right? Like all of those ridiculous conversations that we have ad nauseum online. What we try to do with the Tequila Tales is find a creative and kind of a nuanced perspective on a lot of the topics that, sometimes we are dealing with, and we try to make it as current as possible, but we want to make it as creative also. And so what I try to do is to pull something with like something that's going on currently, or something that's like new, something that, like, for instance, last year around this time, I think we did Love is Taxing, right? Because it's tax season. And so we discussed all the various ways of how, love can be taxing on us. This particular one, it was the spring fling. Something about the spring energy I've always found to be very kind of compelling, right? Like you can feel it in the air, like new blossoming energy, and oftentimes we try to translate that. We can feel it not only in our day-to-day lives, but we can see that energy express itself into our relationships. And so what this particular topic was we called it the spring fling, but really what it was about was like all the ways of, the various stages of a relationship. So not only like the initial attraction, but then also like rekindling flames, so regardless of what stage you're at in your relationship journey, that was what we were ultimately covering. And so, we're going to get into a bit of some of the comments, and like I said, it was an amazing discussion that we had. If you guys, want to check in, and just let me know where you all are from. I'm going to be monitoring the comments, so this is going to be as interactive as possible. But like I said, with this particular topic, we had some really insightful commentary. Now, I want to give you a heads up, just full disclaimer, right? One of the ways that I describe the Tequila Tales is I say that we are intellectuals with ratchet tendencies, right? And what I mean by that is we are adults, okay? And so I say that to say that while I try to keep the conversation on a particular level, I always let people know that this is not therapy, okay? And the reason I say it's not therapy is because while I do believe that there is a lot of value that comes from these discussions and a lot of value that comes from hearing different people's perspectives, our goal is not necessarily to tell you how you should think. The room kind of self-polices itself. And then my goal oftentimes is to play devil's advocate, right? And just to kind of keep the conversation moving. But the reason that I'm giving you this heads up is because on occasion, you may hear some language that makes you want to clutch your pearls. And by all means, like I said, it's not raunchy, but people are going to say some adult things at times, right? And so I just want to give you that heads up so that if you are watching this in an environment, you got it turned up loud, that on occasion you may hear an expletive, right? So I just want to give that full heads up. It's not over the top, right? It's not that bad, but just, it's called the Tequila Tales, and oftentimes there are libations in this room as people are, kind of navigating this discussion. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive right into it, right? Because, one of the things that I started with this particular discussion was we were talking about like flirting, right? Or the onset of a relationship. And one of the things that I always find to be unique, is the diversity that we'll see inside of a particular room, right? And by diversity, while a large portion of our audience are Black and brown people, we are not a monolith. We are absolutely not a monolith. And so I always appreciate just to kind of poke and prod and kind of figure out like how people feel about this landscape in 2024. So much changes day to day, week to week, month to month. So a lot of times it's good to get a litmus test, right? And so where I kind of started from was, the initial spark and kind of really digging in as it relates to like how a person likes to be approached. Okay. So that was where it started, was how an individual likes to be approached. And this was what one individual had to say.
Yeah, I appreciate the idea of having a location where people think that you should meet. I think for me and in general, you can never go bad with just general flirting. Like there's an art that's missed sometimes that we look for locations to go to, the gym, the cigar bars. But what we miss is that idea that you could be anywhere and flirting still works. It's a really cool thing. If you see a dude or you see a female that you feel a general vibe, you feel their aura, sometimes a little, a little extra stare, a little wink, something that just, it's not too aggressive, but you give the opportunity to do that. I think in flirting and giving somebody that energy, that vibe that I'm feeling you, is a good conversation starter. Simple stuff.
So how do you all feel about that? And again, feel free to just type it right in the comments. I can actually monitor the comments directly right here. Like I said, I want to make it as interactive as possible, but how do you all feel about that? How do you all feel about the flirting process? And by the way, I have so much content to go through. I know we're not going to be able to go through all of it, but I'm going to save some of it from next time. What was unique about the discussion was, I was asking people, how do they like to be approached and what are good places that you appreciate being approached, right? And there was one woman who said, and it was funny because I take that back. There were two women in the audience that said that they felt that the gym was a good place to meet a person, right? I get it on one end, but on the next end, I wanted to call bull, right? And like, again, if you all are watching this, just let me know, like, how would you feel, whether or not you are single or if you are in a relationship, right, or married? Just think back to that point when you were on the hunt, I guess we should say. How do you feel about the gym process, right? Like about approaching someone at the gym? Do you think that that's off limits? In my personal opinion, and it's weird, right? Because, and what's so fascinating about these discussions is the diversity of thought, right? Because I thought that the gym was sacred ground. I thought you were not supposed to approach someone at the gym. I thought that people came into the gym because they had an objective, they were focused, they knew what it was that they were attempting to accomplish, and they just didn't have a lot of time for that background stuff, right? But it was fascinating to see a few of the women that was in this room that were single saying that they absolutely had no problem with being approached at the gym. Now, it did come with a caveat, right? And the caveat was to not say anything about their bodies, right? Which, okay, I get that, right? Like that, obviously that makes sense because that is a big portion of like the courtship process is let's walk into this space and pretend like what is it? You know what I'm saying? So I always find that funny because you know that that's the reason why I'm approaching you is because you look amazing in those Lululemon pants. But oftentimes it's like, nah, look me in the eyes. Women were saying that one woman said that she appreciated it because someone complimented her on her smile. I said, okay, yeah, that was creative, right? But it did kind of tickle me a little bit because, again, I always thought that the gym was off limits. I always, just from listening to women, but what one person did acknowledge was that 9 times out of 10, it's not necessarily how they approach you. It's whether or not you find them attractive, right? So if you find this person attractive, they could probably approach you at a funeral, right? You over here about to close the casket, on your loved one. And if dude look like Idris Elba, you might just go. So, always appreciate, the honesty, right, that comes from the particular room, but like I said, the conversation, it always takes a lot of different just elements. So, we're gonna peel into this next comment, and I want you all to watch it in its entirety, because this is another time that I have a question for the audience. And by the way, if you guys are enjoying this, like, go ahead and share it, so that we can get more people inside the discussion. And again, like I said, if you all comment directly, I can monitor the comments, from my desktop. But I want you all to watch this next one. And if there is a man, I'm gonna give my perspective on this, right? But when I talk about the diversity that's in the room, it's not just diversity of thought, but it's background, it's age. And so, especially being in Arizona, sweet spot can be anywhere from early 30s to late 50s, right? So, I mean, we're talking 2 solid generations that can be inside of this space, actually, sometimes even in the 60s, right? And so it's always interesting, especially when some of the more mature women come in, because I always feel like they add just not only a bit of wisdom, but they can also throw curveballs. But this was a question that someone had, and we didn't really get an opportunity to address it directly, but I would also like to know you all's thoughts.
This young lady right here, when you were talking about, yes, ma'am, I'm sorry, taking the initiative and saying, who are you, what, all of those things. I had a question, and I was wondering where the generational gap turns up. And then this young lady, who I know is a whole lot younger than me, she said something that makes sense to me. When do men decide that that's too forward? Because when I was coming up, and what we were told was to let them approach us. And it's not like because we think we the shit. It's not because, yes, we know we're a prize. However, we also held it in our hand, and if you wanted it, come and get it. So there was that man in my generation and older who was like, oh, she can't tell me I'm fine. I've had plenty of men in my youth tell me, well, I'm sorry, not plenty of men. But when I was younger, I would say, I liked you. You know what I mean? I like you. And they was like, oh, you're not supposed to say that. I'm supposed to say that. So what do the women, older gentlemen, I know y'all in here, y'all look good, but I know y'all in here. Older gentlemen, women who in the peer group that you're looking in, are we too forward if we do that? Are you receptive to that? Or are you still trying to chase? What is the natural progression of things for some of us who are older? And even the young girl said it. I'm sorry. The younger lady said it. They think that way too.
So how do you all feel about that, right? Society in many cases is like fashion, right? And what I mean by that is, like, sometimes, like, when you think about fashion, sometimes you can notice things, there's like a gradual shift that can happen. Like, I don't know if you all remember, like, we started slowly getting, our pants started becoming slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. It went from like baggy to like relaxed to boot cut. Then next thing you know, we wasn't skinny, then like super skinny, right? Like, there was like a gradual movement, but then every once in a while, fashion could just turn on a dime, right? And you kind of see that now. I think, like, with the younger generation, I've noticed that they've gone right back to super baggy. So even though it took us a while to get to skinny, bam, they jump right back to baggy, right? And so what ends up happening in those moments is you can literally look up and become obsolete overnight, right? Like, you can look up in your entire closet, is quote unquote outdated. It's one thing if we were in relaxed and then it goes to boot cut and you just like, oh, okay. And you just kind of taking your time until you kind of navigate over there. You don't just look like an old person because you're not wearing boot cut. But then when all of a sudden something dramatic happens, it's almost like it becomes difficult sometimes to catch up, right? And so I feel like the same thing happens with society, right? And what we've noticed over the last, I would say like 5 to 10 years, and I do believe that technology and social media has sped this process up dramatically. But what's occurred in this space is that, I'm noticing that there are a lot of societal shifts that's happening as it relates to the courtship process. And so as the woman was just sharing, and as she asked to the audience, like, well, how do men feel about being approached? Because like she said, coming up, that was like a no-no. Men were supposed to be the hunters. Men were supposed to be the ones that was chasing. We're supposed to be the one to ask you for your number, right? And while I do believe that there are still many people that desire that traditional space, it is kind of unique to look at this space that we find ourselves in. And if you are someone that's currently seeking someone, right? Like if you are in the dating space and you are looking for a mate, I know that can become delicate because it's almost like you feel a bit like a fish out of water, right? And you're trying to determine, like, especially if you have a traditional mindset, but then it's almost like at the same time, how long do you want to go without meeting someone? You know what I'm saying? And so to that particular one, just to give my personal opinion, I guess I would just say, like, do whatever it is that's comfortable for you, right? Do whatever it is that's comfortable for you, but just understand that in either regard, there is a bit of, there's some consequences, right? Or there's going to be some drawbacks. There's some advantages, and then there's going to be some drawbacks, right? And I know that there are times where it's like, if you come from that traditional space, it's like, nah, I don't do the chasing, which I think that that's fine. But then because of the way that society has shifted, and because of the fact that, women are in a much more in a position of power in 2024, unlike how they may have been in the 70s and 80s and the whole nine. I feel like the entire dynamic is shifting, right? So there was actually a gentleman that spoke about this, and I want to cue this clip up because he responded to that, right? And so this is what someone said in the show directly as it relates to that last question.
I want to address the young lady back here in the back that had the comment. And then follow up on young bro over here. I think the difference right now I think men are consciously being aware that the old school way of the man being the money provider and the chaser and all that, those days are done. I know that if you're a traditionalist, it sounds like that's what it should be, but we have better expectations for our women. I don't expect my woman to be in somebody's kitchen cooking and handling kids. That's just not what I expect. So I feel like we're in a balance now that if I can approach her and talk to her, she is a 2024 woman. She has her career. She is a mother. She's a single, whatever, that she could approach me if it's plausible for us to do that together. And I think that's where the respectable man has tried to find himself, is that, yeah, I don't want you being all up on my dick and on some serious shit. But at the same time, I do respect that, look, if you feeling me and I didn't see you because I'm in the grocery store or I'm in the gym or whatever doing, I may not have seen you. So if you saw me and you like, I'm feeling him, come holler at your boy. That's simple. You ain't got to do all of it, but at least make that connection that if I missed you, come talk to me. And I'll do the rest. I'll do the heavy lifting, but you just got to make that connection. But don't be throwing out don't give it up. They'll be like, I'm gonna give you all this right now. Just make that connection. But we're trying to be respectful. I assume, I don't know all men in here, but I assume that we've identified that this is not 1950.
Right.
Y'all can come and meet us halfway. If y'all want that, I'm an independent woman, then bring your independent ass into a conversation. Don't expect to have that idea where I'm independent, I'm making my money, I'm doing my thing, but I want you to come talk to me. You can't do that. It's got to be one or the other, or make it easy. Come talk to me. If you see me, holler at your boy and I'll give you the dick. That's all good. But don't be shy and expect me to do everything and then be shy. Girl, there ain't no good women out here. Why not? They ain't talking to me. They won't say nothing to me. Because you sitting up there being princess. There's a whole... Is there more women than men? Is there more women than men? Then you better believe that your boy getting hit on by a whole lot of women. If you need to make that jump over that conversation just to make a connection, do it. We'll holler.
Right. So, so again, if you're watching and you want to engage, share your thoughts on that, right? Because I mean, again, I think that this goes across the board. It goes across the board. There are still a lot of men that feel like, nah, this is my space. I don't like it when a woman is too forward, right? But like the gentleman just said, and again, he made it a point to know that he was not speaking for everyone. But he appeared to be rather progressive in his thought process. And from his ideology, it's just like, okay, I've got a different expectation for the women that I'm dealing with. I don't expect you to be, I guess, barefoot and pregnant or, in the kitchen cooking. So he's searching for more of the 2024 style relationship where he acknowledges the progress that many women have made. And in acknowledging that progress as it relates to them being independent, he's saying that there's also some other things that come along with that independence. And man, what's so fascinating about it is I think that when I first started with the Tequila Tales, I staunchly kind of held his perspective, right? It's funny how sometimes you can look at life and you can, if you're not careful, you can only see it through your perspective. And have enough hubris to think that how you feel about the situation is what's best. But what I am starting to really learn is that we are really all truly built differently, and so what you find in many cases is that you'll have a lot of women that they are ferociously independent, right? But when it comes to relationships, they operate more off of a traditional paradigm. I've got a good friend of mine that was just telling me about how some coworkers of hers, it's a woman who, and they work for an airline, that she really has a big crush on this other male flight attendant. And, they seldom see one another. And this woman is literally trying to concoct the most bizarre of circumstances to put herself in a position so that this dude can holler at her, right? And as they're telling me this story, it literally sounds like needle in the haystack kind of ridiculousness, right? Like, I mean, and then her girlfriends is telling her, like, yeah, girl, well, look, send him a friend request, okay? And then comment on a couple of his pictures. And then it comes to a point where it's like, okay, at what point are you just going to slide in his DMs and ask him out for coffee, right? Like, and I get it, because rejection is a tough thing. Men, we know this because this is typically the space that we have to, encounter. I guess where I'm getting at is, if you really do see yourself as an independent person and you really have made these steps to step into this new millennium, right, and take ownership of your own faculty, then I do believe that this, in many ways, from a societal perspective, is the next shift. And I know that makes a lot of people uncomfortable when you say that sometimes, right? Because it's like you want to be sought after. You want to know that you are desired. One of my close friends, he says that, and it's funny because I'm gonna jack this up, but he says, men want to be loved, women want to be wanted, right? And so from his perspective, he always sees it as a woman will typically cheat in a relationship if she does not feel desired, right? But a man would cheat if he does not feel loved. Now, I don't know necessarily how I feel about this. You all can give me your perspective on it. I thought that was kind of interesting play, on how his perspective with it. But what he was saying was that, women want to be sought after. And so I understand that. I think, though, in some instances, you have to ask yourself, are you willing to allow the prize to get away, right? Ooh, let me be careful. I said the prize, because I guess if I say the prize, that means that the man is the prize. now I'm going into that whole Simone Biles situation, but just saying the prize to you, right? Like, and like he just acknowledged, like he may not have seen you. It may have been a situation where either he didn't see you or there was some other things that was going on. And honestly, I think that we are in a space in 2024 where men are trying to recalibrate, right? We're trying to figure this thing out. And for the guys that may not appear to be overly assertive, really, I think they're just kind of being very cautious because the way of how we used to approach used to be so toxic, right? It used to be very borderline Neanderthalish. And so as we evolve, I think that, again, like I said a moment ago, society is shifting so dramatically that it is causing a lot of people to try to recalibrate and figure out, what's in bounds and what's out of bounds. Because, man, just 15 short years ago, man, like there was a lot of things that would be considered, fair game that now you might get canceled and fired for, right? And so because of that, I think everybody is kind of approaching this space with a little bit of trepidation, right? And I think that that's fair. I think that that's fair that if you are not making it clear, and I don't know what making it clear is, if you're not going to be assertive, man, you really got to go out of your way to let someone know that you're interested in them. And so, this is one of those situations, man, where it's like, we're still trying to figure the space out, right? Now, on to the next comment, because like I said, these conversations, man, they can go all over the place. We were talking about women and just this new space. And we went into a space where we were talking about how men typically operate and how women typically operate. And I was challenged by a woman that made it known that women can operate a certain way too. And so this was her rebuttal to my assumption that, men genetically operate one way, whereas women typically get more attached. She did not agree with that. So this is where we landed.
Because I've done the work on myself, I think a lot of individuals, male and females, problem is they are afraid to sit and spend time with themselves in between situations to learn what went well, what went wrong, what they like, what they don't like. I take myself on dates. I don't sit around. Most of my friends are married or coupled up. If I'm sitting around waiting for when they can go or get a babysitter or do whatever, I'm going to always be in the house. So that's one thing. And that's how I go out and that's how I meet people and just strike up general conversations. But to play devil's advocate for just a moment or give the other side of the coin, as far as I'm concerned, as a result of the work that I've done, I can have a pre and a post. Whatever that word is that you said, I can look at a man and know that I just want to have sex with him, and I'm going to get up afterwards and take my whole bath and take my ass home. And then he's sitting there in shock like he can't believe it. Pre and post. I have the ability to do that because that's what I want to do, because I learned to know the difference. I learned how to exercise boundaries. It goes back to what I just said about, is there anybody around that thinks they are more in your life than they really are, that y'all haven't touched and agreed on? Why, as a woman, and I've learned this through experience and doing it, and it didn't turn out very well. Why, as a woman, just because the physical aspect was good and ooh and what, and I had a dick dream, don't mean he's my man. That wasn't part of my dream, that he was my man. I can do that. All women and men can do that because men can go into a situation, oh, this is just a one night stand. Okay, cool. I'm getting on a plane tomorrow. I'm with it. Next morning you wake up, you done changed your mind. It works both ways. It can be done. It's just not a man's sport in terms of that. In contrary to what you said about this is just what men do. No, women do it too. Women do it too. We have the ability to do it. And I grew up very traditional. You know, where my mother said, don't accept gifts, don't call men, let them call you, type shit. So it's possible. That's all I'm going to say.
And she was a lot of fun. And in a moment, I'll play another clip from her because she really had a lot to say that particular day. But I thought that this other clip was rather interesting. I'll just use that word. But yeah, so to give a little bit of context to the comment that she made, right? And again, you guys can feel free to chime in and let me know how you feel. But you know what we were talking about was one of the gentlemen had made a comment about, saying something about how men typically can operate in terms of like how women can go into certain spaces to try to find men. And, you know, because that was one of the questions, where can someone go to find a good man, right? And so, you know, as we said earlier, you know, some people were saying, go to a cigar shop. Some people were saying, oh, you want to go to a tobacco place. And so then there became this conversation where we were trying to figure out like, okay, does that really work? Does that really work if you just implant yourself in a space where there are a lot of men with the assumption that because you made it easier for them, that all of a sudden that may increase the chances of you connecting with someone, right? Because, you know, again, with that particular thing, I think that the jury is still out. The jury is out on that in a sense of, you know, just because you go to a cigar bar or, you know, a spot, that doesn't necessarily mean that because you're there and you're also smoking sticks with other men that all of a sudden they're going to have the hard eyes, right? And I've been one to say that I honestly think that sometimes the opposite can happen, right? Like in a sense of, not necessarily in a sense of you're infiltrating their space, but in a sense that sometimes men can sense when you're thirsty, the same way women can too, right? Like, and so just because I implant myself in heavily women environments doesn't all of a sudden mean that I'm just going to clean up, right? And so one of the men was saying was that, you know, you have to acknowledge, you know, like where you're going. And so what that did was kind of shift the conversation into what happens with men and how sometimes we can go real hard up front and then after sex, we can fall off. And so I was simply saying that when that occurs, that's not always because a man was just on some BS, right? Or he just wanted to draw us. There are times where a chemical thing happens at the moment of climax where it's like after that testosterone leaves us, we have this clarity. And if we really didn't have an opportunity to forge a significant bond with you to where it goes beyond sex, after that need had been satiated, you know, at that point, the desire is also gone. And so that was the point that I was trying to make. But I think in making that point, I unknowingly made it seem like the same thing doesn't happen with women. And even though a lot of women, you know, say it differently, I don't know, maybe I'm just being stubborn or maybe it's my past experience. I don't know. You know, I still think there's some validity in what it is that I'm saying as it relates to the difference between when a woman reaches that point and when a man reaches that point, right? And again, that's a whole nother conversation or whatever, you know, and I don't, you know, I hate to have those kind of discussions where it's like you group everybody together. Yes, I know that women can play the game too, but I also believe that there are times where women are playing the game because they want to even the stakes. They're not playing the game because they are biologically predisposed to being that way. Now, what was brought up in the discussion was that a lot of times we're making it seem like it's biological or it's genetics. and in all actuality, it's sociology. You know what I'm saying? And so in that regard, I was like, okay, I will give you that. I will give you that we are in a society, that a patriarchal society that has run this way for thousands of years. And so in many cases, women may not have had the faculty or the liberty to be able to express themselves that way. So I will give you that. But again, I'm just speaking from the male perspective. It just feel a little different from us, but nonetheless, I did want you all to hear this one comment, because I did find it to be rather poignant. And this was one of the comments that kind of took us on this thread that I was just discussing a moment ago.
Basically, it starts from understanding the character of the individual. I think we fall in the seat of judging how people's perspective of dating and relationships should go based off of what we were taught. I'm 45 years old. The way we were taught back then, it don't always work now. And it don't mean somebody being desperate or, the term about women, when a woman decides to just want to sleep, even though it's different versus a man, for a woman to decide that she just want to sleep with somebody just for the sake of pleasure, we call her a hoe. But when a man do it, he gets applaud. So coming up in the church world, we basically go based off of what we were taught from the aspect of the spiritual realm, but really don't understand the character of the individual. So when you don't understand the character of the individual that you're pursuing, you can get trapped in that dick dream. But you might just want the dick dream. So it's really being honest with what you want, where you at, and where you trying to go. Because I don't think it's desperate for a woman to approach a man. It's how she do it. If you consistent in wanting to be seen, it depends on where you go. You can't expect to meet a man or desire a man that's family oriented, but you want to go to the bar and to the club, and that's where you find them. Not to say that you don't have good men in the club, but typically when we go to the club, we going to see what we can catch. But if you want somebody that's consistent, a family individual, you got to go to a different place sometime. So you don't judge a person based off of how you think it should go. You got to respect people's ideas on where they should go. So it's more so understanding the character of the individual. Everybody's character is different. The young lady made a statement about intimacy. Intimacy goes a long way. I was telling baby, after a man, we grown, nut, if you ain't got nothing else to give him, that's all you're going to be, somebody to drop off at. But if you got something to give him, after that nut, we want to hold you. We want to talk. Where can we build? Where can we go from here? That's what we look for as a man. But you can drop off. You looking for? Well, you can get a freak in that too. So, but at the same token, you just gotta build. You gotta know where to build and respect people's opinion and on how they think things should go, instead of judging them. Because I don't think a woman is a hoe because she don't want to be committed. You got some women that ain't what they want. So.
Okay, right. So again, context, right? So now you have the context of how we found ourselves on that particular thread. And I always have my notes planned and I always have a lot of notes, but a conversation is dynamic. And so when someone says something, it's going to get your mind moving in other areas. And so as you may have seen about what he said, was like, if you don't have more to offer, then you're just pretty much a jump off, right? And I didn't necessarily feel like what I was saying was controversial, but I saw that moment to just say, hey, I know that there are times where people feel like, man, everything felt like it was going good. And then it's like we rushed to the sex part. And then after that, they kind of fell off. And it was like, yeah, in most cases, that is because nothing else had been put forth that made that individual either want to stick around or incentivize them to stick around, right? And so I wasn't necessarily, saying that it was necessarily a good or bad, like judgment free, but just saying that in many cases, when you notice that happen, rather than just castigating the individual, you could just take that as an indication. Because what happens sometimes is a person can get stuck in all the steps that led up to the sex and like the dream that a person was going through, right? And so it's almost like you got to know when to pump the brakes, because that was what where we got into this space initially was like, have you ever been engaged in a romance, a fling or whatever? How do you know when it's time to pump the brakes, right? And so I pose this to men and women, right? But there are times where you do just dive in, and when you do dive in and you're hoping for more on the back end, if there isn't anything more, you can't take that as an indication. Now, take it how you want to, because sometimes, like the gentleman said, you might just want something physical. And I do think that there are times where that happens. I did challenge that, because for men and women, right? Because I do think that we always jump in with these expectations that we can have something purely physical. And that's one of those things where it's like, it looks better on paper, right? But it's very difficult to actually play out, because yeah, you tell yourself that this is what I want, but what you can't control is all of these other feelings that can sometimes occur as you start to march down that path. And so what may have started as a fling can turn into something, that's different. And so this is what, you probably kept hearing people use the word dick dream, right? And admittedly, that's why I gave y'all the heads up early on to say there's a little bit of language, because people be real. Let me at least let you all watch this video to give the context of that, because I just thought this was a hilarious comment. And, it is what kind of spawned everything else from that point.
I'm 54. I'll be 55 on May 23rd. This gentleman had just turned 61 in January. I think it was acceptable. I don't like overly aggressive men, so I'm not going to be overly aggressive towards a man. I can kind of discern if he ain't feeling what I'm saying. I'm going to throw in a little joke or what have you. And if he don't bite off of that or reciprocate that energy, I'm not going to keep trying to pursue them. And I think that goes to what this gentleman is saying over here about being aggressive or appearing to be desperate or what have you. I'm not going to do that. And then if I can answer the next topic's question. Are we on the next topic?
Yep, go for it.
Can you repeat the question? It's when
Yep.
do you know?
I want to know, what are the telltale signs that you're getting swept up in the intoxicating thrill of a blossoming connection, and how do you know when to pump the brakes?
This is adults, right? Mm-hmm. Like we adults, we can say. When you have an absolutely amazing connection with someone, you know what I mean? Because for me, my belief is intimacy has nothing to do with sex.
Okay.
When you have that, and then the physical is bomb, and then you as a female, because it has happened to me, you wake up the next morning in a dick dream. Like ladies, y'all know what I'm talking about. It stays with you all day long. You do a little bit of work and then you close your eyes and you take a deep breath. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know it. That's when I know that I'm going, yeah. And, I got to do some breathing exercises and meditate and get back. It's just like a euphoria that you feel, similar to, indulging in Mary Jane or what have you. And then you slowly come down and then you snap out of it. You're like, girl, don't you get caught up. I talk to myself and answer. I say, don't get caught up. Like, I try to exercise some control over my emotion, but the reality is I can do the same thing as we historically say males do, in terms of, even though we are emotionally connected to our parts, we also have needs as well. And I know how to respect a boundary. Okay. I know how, if I met you and you just here for the weekend, you ain't gonna be my man, and that's all right. That's why I say I'm single and dating.
Okay.
And if he wake up in the same type of dream, then he's going to pursue me, like the other sister said. I'm gonna let you do it. I ain't gonna call you because I'm busy, and I'm gonna respect that you're busy, and I'm not gonna have any expectations about how long it takes you to text me back or call me back. I'm not gonna do any of that. You need to wonder what I'm doing, like I need to wonder what you're doing. And then we collectively make time to figure that out. All right.
Oh man, it's always fun watching them back through. It's almost like you catch things the more you watch it, right? But yeah, no. So that was what kind of set off quite a bit of the other commentary. And just her even just sharing, right, that like she has that ability to be able to switch. Now, she also, I don't know if you peeped it, she said she's I think she said 54, gonna be 55 in like late May. That means she a Gemini. So as a little bitty, I don't know if you know anything about astrology, but yeah, they have the ability to be hot and cold, and a little bipolary sometimes, right? So that might have been a little bit of the inclination, But okay, so I got this clip I want y'all to watch. Y'all ain't been sharing with me. I'm asking you all to comment in, to make this as interactive as possible. But that's cool. I can feel you. I can feel you in spirit. I want y'all to watch this because I want to share my thoughts on this particular one. But it will be interesting to get you all's perspective.
So I just happened fairly recently, actually, and I thought it was pretty cool. I wanted to hang out with a young lady I had just met, and I didn't have any money. I was broke. I had $20 to my name. So I said, all right, well, we can hang out. Come with me. I'm gonna plan something for us to do. Pull up on me, and we'll get some drinks. And how about you come climb this mountain with me real quick over in Tempe? So she was down with it. First of all, you got to find somebody who actually wants to hang out with you. That's the most important part. And so I went and I just got 2 bottles of Moscato, which cost like $7, like some barefoot Moscato. You feel me? Spent like $15 and went up and we walked up to the mountain and 300 feet in the air. We drank wine and looked at the city lights and you listened to music and it was a great night. It was a great night.
So out of that 20, you spent 15 of it on that
$15,
day.
and I had one of the best nights I had in Arizona, so it was a good day.
That.
So I was proud of myself. I ain't gonna lie to you. So.
Shout out to the young Thundercat. You know what I mean? Balling on the budget, right? Like sometimes, man, listen, you got to make it happen, man. You got to do what you can do, I was curious to get you all's perspective on that, right? Because like earlier in the evening, and I'm actually gonna play this little exchange that I thought was kind of fun. There was a gentleman who kind of shared that he was one that believed that kind of if you didn't have your shit together, that you should not be pursuing other individuals, right? And I can totally understand that frame of thinking, I was curious to get people's like feedback on that, like when I actually release these clips online, it's going to be fascinating to watch some of the online dialogue because, like I said, I know that there's this space that we're in right now where it feels like we're rushing towards the bottom, but the reality of it is that, sometimes you do have to meet people where they're at, and so, I applauded the young brother for his creativity. I don't know about the Moscato, man. That sounds like a bit of a headache on the back end. But at the same time, though, right? It's like, who knows how young he is, man? If he's in his like early 20s or whatever, it's like newsflash, right? You're not supposed to be balling out of control in your 20s like that. But I feel like when it comes to social media, there's so many lies, right? And so much cap that's out here nowadays that it's almost like, everybody's pretending like they have something that they don't. And the reality of it is that a healthy portion of them don't have anything, right? And so, you know, I applauded the young brother, man, for just figuring out a way to move the chains, right? Now, I know sometimes there may be some people that's like, nah, really, what he need to be doing is filling out job applications. He got bigger fish to fry. And if that's how you feel, I completely understand it, right? Because I mean, there are many times where it's like when I'm in the grind and I got the horse blinders on, like, yeah, like none of that type of stuff mattered to me. But at the same time, it's hard to just completely turn that off, right? Because as humans, men and women, we have needs. And so, you know, I was curious to get people's feedback on that one. And even just, you know, it's going to be interesting to see culturally how people respond, because, you know, anytime these types of discussions happen, people feel like there's one set of rules for Black people as opposed to how everybody else operates. But the reality of it is like I said, like, you know, statistics are showing that we're not living in a world where everybody's making six figures, right? So, you know, most people are check to check, just to be clear, right? And yet babies are still being had. So it's like, you know, we got to get back to just learning how to authentically connect with people. But nonetheless, want to show you all this one exchange. It's actually a two-parter. So I'm gonna just go ahead and cue it up now.
Early on, I think there was a gentleman who said dating in 2024 is not the same, that women should approach halfway or meet halfway. But me personally, and I guess also this is part of my cultural background that comes in, I kind of call BS on that. I just think as a man, be a man and just go for it. Because the worst case scenario that can happen is she would say no. And, you know, most women who are healthy, they'll be healthy and have a good life, will actually say, you know, they would appreciate you taking the step, but, you know, they'll say no. Because, you know, life is never guaranteed. So you have to remember that everything we do, it's an investment, but it can never be guaranteed. Even sometimes if I'm having to take a woman on a date and she's beautiful, I can't be naive to not think that I'm the only dude who wants her. So me, as a guy, as a hunter, I gotta compete myself and say, all right, I'm gonna be the one standing at the top and be like, yeah, this is mine. I won this. I won you in the battle of love. But also, adding on, I think, you know, all these new terms I'm learning about, pre-nut, post-nut, big dream, and all that kind of stuff.
TM.
You know, I just personally feel like all these extra words make it more complex. I think we should try, once again, not try to go against, once again, what Mother Nature has already put in place, because they will automatically take care of all of that. I think, you know, as early on, there was a young lady who said, you know, if she has genuine desire, interest for you, you know, things will actually kind of go sailing smoothly. Most of the time, you know, if I see things are not going any way forward, especially me as a man, I'll probably blame myself and say, there is something I did that I fucked up that I probably don't know how I did it. And even like, as I am young, I'm still in my 20s, you know, my goal, you know, in life, you know, when I find the one, I don't want no woman working for another man in his kingdom. She's got to work for me. And I think one of the best advices I ever got is, if you feel like you cannot take care of a woman, then you shouldn't be out there trying to date or do anything.
When you say, hold up.
Okay, I don't have much time, right? But I thought that was a rather interesting comment. So I'm going to just let you see the follow-up that I also thought was kind of fun.
A little clarity.
Yes, ma'am.
When you say work for, what do you mean? Curious.
So, like, so that's a good question.
Yeah.
So, for example,
questions that need answers.
So let's say, you know, if I'm married and I'm working and then she's working for another company and she's using all those skill sets to bring them more money and stuff like that, which is great, but, you know, I just feel like, why should that company have the benefits of her skill sets when me as a man, I should probably start my own business, entrepreneur, and then like have her use her skill set so that we can build a family or kingdom.
I'm here for that. I'm here for that. Although wildly unrealistic. Like what if her, What if her skill set is something wildly outside of whatever entrepreneurial endeavor you
Okay.
plan to go down?
And
I'm
this is-
sorry, I'm spending way too much time on
it's
this,
okay,
but
it's okay.
I'm very
It's
curious
okay.
about what kind of work you want her to
And
do.
this is what happens. Obviously, back to the whole point. It shouldn't be about physical and just looking at her. You also have to train her and coach her some stuff. That's the whole point. She comes into your life because she finds it very interesting, and then you help her, like coach her, give her the skill sets, make her understand this is what what we say that men need to lead. Like give her the tools and everything she needs so that she can accommodate you in your
He's
future
struggling.
endeavor.
We can move on. He's adorable. You're good. Thank you.
Did you have a rebuttal?
No, that's it.
What
No
was
follow-up.
what was the problem?
No problems. You're going to
Anyone
find the
else?
woman of your dreams.
Anyone had a
in
problem?
here. All right, I got to come.
Listen. Listen, man. One thing I absolutely love in these shows are the exchanges, right? Like, my job is obviously to play devil's advocate, but like I tell people, man, the room as it evolves, it holds you accountable, and so that's what's always fun is just the playful banter, But one of the things that we always do is while we do challenge one another, and we don't necessarily have to agree with everybody, right? But we do appreciate the open exchange of ideas, and just being genuine, being authentic, and being vulnerable. There was a lot that was shared that night. I just gave you all just little tidbits, little tidbits, as well as maybe some of my added insights, but there was really a lot that occurs inside of those rooms, and so yeah, it's just it's really been fascinating, and a bit of a blessing to be able to see really how nuanced this space is, not only how nuanced we are as individuals, right? But I do want to encourage you guys, man, to if you're not doing so already, if you're very plugged into this virtual space, it offers a tremendous amount of value, right? But we do have to sometimes remember like where our foundation lies, and we really do have to get back into that space of like communicating with one another in a very genuine and authentic manner. I think that we're about to go into a space as artificial intelligence continues to take off, like literally right before our eyes. I think that the world that we inhabit in a very short period of time, and by short period of time, I'm talking at the speed with which things are progressing, this space may look very different in 12 to 24 months from now, right? And it's going to want to suck you into the box a lot, right? And so, where I would just encourage you, man, is to make certain that you're finding that sense of balance, right? And you're knowing how to unplug when necessary, and just like I said, get back to just tapping in and connecting with people. But, listen, you guys, I appreciate you all. And yeah, this was fun, and until the next time.